Hello and welcome to Scribes and Songsters. I'm Veronique Mandel. If you love a good cop story, and most people do, then you need to read Gas of Tank. The book relates many of the experiences of Todd Ternovan, who spent most of his career as an OPP officer across southern Ontario, including right here in Essex County. Matthew St. Amand crafted Todd's fascinating stories into an entertaining book that includes, among others, breaking up jail riots, guarding a Nazi war criminal, and investigating hockey hazing rituals that shocked many Canadians. Together, Todd and Matthew provide the reader with an insight into the world of local policing that most of us never imagine. Welcome to Scribes and Songsters.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
So now, do you like to be called Matthew or Matt?
Matthew's fine.
Matthew. I like Matthew. So let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You grew up here?
I did. I grew up in Essex County. I'm a freelance writer. I've been writing since 1988. And I've always got an eye out for a good story. And I lived next door to Todd Ternovan and heard many good stories.
So we'll hear about that.
Yes.
Now, you also are a playwright. You've written a number of plays.
That's correct. I've had 6 plays produced in Windsor. I've got a 7th called Tether that will be coming out in this year. So, I like to work in different genres and try out different things.
And a screenplay.
That's
Tell
correct.
me about that.
I've got a few screenplays. I had a couple optioned, and one about a conspiracy radio show host. And it's just a fun mental exercise. Me. No, it wasn't you. But anyway, I put it online, and I got a call from somebody who wanted to develop it. We worked on it for about 3 years, but it's harder than you think to try and get these over the hump.
Yes, getting anything optioned is very difficult, and it can be really brilliant.
Right.
Yeah. So, Todd, where did you grow up?
Grew up in Windsor, born and raised. Windsor for a short time, and now last 20 years or so I've been in LaSalle.
So, before we get to the actual book and how this came about, this collaboration, tell me about the start of your career. So you were a teenager when you first started down the road that led to this book?
Okay, I'm going to take you back to 1979. Okay, and if you grew up in Windsor, we entered the 80s, we were in a bit of a recession. There weren't a lot of jobs. At the time, I was in the human kinetics program at Windsor. I was in there for 2 years. Wasn't really happy with it. It was a hard program. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Wanted to move away, have some life experiences. So I decided to go to Ryerson. The only problem in the way was money. Okay, so I had to make some money. I had to make some money to go to school. I mean, there were some OSAP loans and things like that, but I needed some money to go to school. The factories weren't hiring. It was kind of doom and gloom in Windsor in the 79, 80s. So I go to a place called Manpower. And for the listeners who are old enough to know, Manpower, there was no Indeed, there's no online resumes. It was a building you had to go to look for jobs. So I go to Manpower, and I'm looking for a job because I want to go to school in Toronto. And I see a job, and it's 1979. It was $17 an hour, and it said corrections officer. That's really all it said. So,
$17 an hour.
That was a lot of money.
That was
good money. That would have solved my problems.
Yeah.
So I applied to this job. It was a summer job. And lo and behold, 2 days later, I'm getting a call from the Windsor jail. And I'm going, I want to be a corrections officer. They go, yeah, well, this is what you applied to. Can you come down for an interview? We like your resume. So I go down for an interview, and I'm not even 20 yet. I'm about 160 pounds. I'm middle class. I haven't been arrested. I don't know anyone who's arrested. I don't know cops. I don't know anything really about law enforcement beyond Hill Street Blues or something. So here I am. I apply at the jail. Well, lo and behold, I get the job. I pass this interview, and I got this summer job at the Windsor jail. So I think I'm going to get this fancy uniform and all this equipment. Well, they give me a pair of gray slacks. I get a green blazer, like a PGA jacket that you'd win. It was actually a green blazer.
Really?
A white shirt and a clip-on tie. And they said, there's your equipment. You're good to go. It fits well, and you start on Monday. So I start on Monday, and I go to the jail. And I walked around with a couple people for a while and had insults hurled at me. And I'm in a world I've never been in before in my life. Okay?
And of course, you had a clip-on tie for a reason.
Clip-on tie, yes.
So you wouldn't get strangled.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Clip-on tie. And they wanted you to look good and set some type of an example for some of the unfortunate people that were in the jail who didn't have any role models. So allegedly we were some type of a role model. But I learned that job very quickly. And I learned mostly that you could really do well in there if you talked well, if you spoke to people and you treated people decently. Yeah. You didn't have to fight. I never fought anyone. I never got in any fights. I've seen a lot of bad things and there, a lot of violence, but personally, I've never been involved in any. So anyway, that's where it all starts. So this is 1979 into 80. I'm working at the Windsor jail.
Did you meet any interesting characters in there?
Not really in the Windsor jail. There was a whole variety of people in there, from homeless people to drug problems, alcoholics, petty street criminals. There were some hardcore bikers and stuff. There was one incident in the book. I can get into it now if you want. There was a very serious murder in Windsor on Moy Avenue. Now, I'm not going to get into the details or anything, but those from Windsor will know about this murder. Okay, involved organized crime. Some bikers killed 3 people in Windsor. And they got convicted and were sent away to the Kingston area. I think they went to Joyceville for life. Well, they made an appeal, and lo and behold, their appeal gets granted when Todd Ternovan's working at the jail. Wow. So now these 3 hardcore murderers are coming back to Windsor. And of course, Windsor is the jail staff and administration is quite concerned with this security-wise. It was a big deal, very highly publicized. So they come to the jail, and I'm already working there for a couple of weeks now. I'm new, and I'm getting these intel briefings about these bad people coming to the jail, and we could expect problems and whatever. So I'm working at the segregation area at the time, down in the basement of the jail. It's 3 stories, the Windsor jail. I'm in the basement, and there's a seg unit there. So I'm working in there, and these guys are being shipped in from Kingston area. And they're shackled and they're brought in. And they meet the superintendent of the jail, which they're firmly told, we aren't going to put up with any of your stuff, any of your crap, any negativity won't be tolerated here. You're in Windsor now. So we're going to do things the Windsor way. In fact, you're going to go spend your time in the segregation area. We aren't putting you with the general population. Well, all hell broke loose. There was a massive fight right at the doorway where they walked in. Okay, I heard it all. I didn't see a lot of it. I'm down in the seg. Then one of my supervisors ran down and says, get to 3 seg cells opened up right away. So I'm frantically opening up some doors downstairs, scared out of my mind from what I'm hearing, just screaming and swearing and yelling. And then this fight eventually spills down to the seg area, down some stairs. And one of the individuals in the battle had a missing leg. It was a prosthetic leg from a motorcycle accident. And that tumbled off. So seeing this, and I'm just a kid, remember, from St. Clair Beach. I just started there.
160 pounds.
160 pounds of me with my green blazer. I'm seeing a lot of things that I really should not have seen. So I'm watching this fight go, and these men, and I'll say men, tough men in Windsor, they're fighting with these guys, these menacing bikers. Anyway, long story short, they get them, and we get them into the cells, and they're locked away. Did someone clunk a guy with his leg? Yes.
Was that you?
No. I was turning keys and trying to keep my own life in order. But yes, I did see, it's in the book, as his leg fell off, in the fight. Yeah. It happened. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned one guy, Dead Ed. Was that during that period? No, that was in your OPP period. And we'll talk about him after.
Talk about Dead Ed.
Yes. Now, there are so many great stories, really brilliantly captured in this book. But now you mentioned that you live next door. Is that how you got together?
That's how I met Matt. When I first moved to LaSalle, I lived right next door to Matt in our little cookie cutter subdivision. And
what attracted you to his stories?
Oh, well, Todd's very animated speaker and a very friendly guy. I'd actually I'm an indoorsman, and I was outside and noticed him cutting his grass, and I did a double take because I go, the lawnmower's not on. And I honestly thought he was like out choreographing some fancy design. And as I was watching, I said, would it maybe work better if you turned it on? He goes, oh, it's battery powered. So he actually was cutting his grass, so that's how we sort of met. And I instantly found that Todd had a great sense of humor, and then soon heard the stories, bits and pieces.
So I'm fascinated by the title, Gas of Tank. One would think that, so did they get that screwed up or something? What does it mean?
Well, Gas of Tank is, again, it's about some outlaw bikers that I was dealing with. This time I'm a seasoned OPP officer now. I'm probably 25 years into the OPP world. And I'm in uniform. I'm on the 401 highway. And I end up stopping with a colleague, a group of bikers, local bikers. They're heading somewhere out west. I don't know where they're going. So we stopped them on the highway. And of course, bikers don't like police. Police don't like bikers. Okay. It's pretty well a known fact. But if you wear clothes that say you're a criminal in front of the OPP, we tend to stop and see what's going on with you. But anyway, there were some violations under the Highway Traffic Act, and so they were stopped. And a colleague and I went through every aspect of their paperwork. We ran them through intelligence databases, through the CPIC system, everything else, through our niche system. We checked mechanics of their bikes. We're looking for what they weren't liking what they were seeing. And this was a busy summer weekend, July, August, busy on the 401, hot. And they were detained for about 20 minutes. And now they aren't happy. It was like you just knocked the hornet's nest off the tree. Swearing, they're getting very agitated. Well, we just kept doing our job. And finally it ends, and it ends with me taking some pictures because I was doing some intel work. So I took some pictures, and there's one picture I have. I got the camera up to my face, aimed up, and the guy's about a foot taller than me. And all I have is his helmet and his nose and his face. He's glaring down at me. So I got that picture, and then it kind of ended. So back to Gas of Tank. The one guy decides to shoot me the finger and pull a wheelie on his Harley and leaves. So we spent enough time with him. We learned, just let it go. We can deal with this later. Well, under the street legislation, stunt driving legislation, I should say, you can't do a wheelie on a motorcycle. Okay, you aren't allowed to. And of course, I'm going to charge this guy for this. So a week later, we go to his house and we charge him. And he's not happy to see me again. He knows he's not happy. So now he's charged with stunt driving, and he's compelled to go to court in Chatham. So we got him in court, and he tells the JP in court that it's impossible to do a wheelie on a Harley because he had a full gas of tank. And this individual was a French person, and he kind of messed up the English language a bit. And that's what he said. And just to me, that term stuck with me, just reminded me how chaotic and how messy the whole world of policing can be. So me and Matt kind of talked for a long time about the name, and we agreed that would be a really suitable name.
It certainly, it draws your eye.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mentioned the Nazi. Where did you meet the Nazi?
Okay, now we're going back a little. When I left the Windsor jail to go to university, I did get accepted to Ryerson.
And what did you enroll in?
Early childhood education. Believe it or not, I have a degree in early childhood education, and I went to Ryerson, which is now Metropolitan Toronto University. Yeah. But in my day, it was Ryerson. So anyway, I go there and I get my degree. But when I left the Windsor jail, the superintendent takes me aside, shakes my hand. You did a good job. Thanks. He goes, you can come back here next summer. Or if you want, my buddy runs the Don jail in Toronto. The Toronto jail is called the Don jail. And I said, oh, really? He goes, yeah, I've already called them. You can start there. Keep the uniform. It's the same deal. You can go start there right after Labor Day. Again, problem solved. Good for me. So now I'm going to Toronto and I'm working at the Toronto jail. So my problems now were solved. I'm working a couple shifts a week, some night shifts, and I'm making some good money and meeting all kinds of interesting people, way more than the Windsor jail. You can only imagine. Windsor would have maybe 100 people there. The Don jail had up to 700. And for the first time in my life, I'm exposed to this multicultural group of criminals from all over. It was just incredible experience.
So the Nazi.
One of the guards, one of the inmates there, was Canada's first Nazi to get investigated and get extradited. This individual's name was Helmut Roca. And he was an old man when I met him. He was an SS Master Sergeant, and his crimes were in Lithuania. He was in charge of some death camps in Lithuania. Anyway, he escaped after the war. He escaped, and he went to Huntsville, and he lived in Huntsville quietly, and he lived in Toronto for a bit. And eventually, a Nazi hunter did track him down, and they turned it over to the RCMP, who investigates those kind of federal crimes. And he was getting extradited back to Germany. So now he's brought into the Don jail. Are there Jewish prisoners in the Don jail? Yes, of course, right? So we couldn't put him in general population. Besides, he had ailing health. So they quite often would pick me, being a part-time guy who had a good reputation, to watch him. So I'd go and hang out with Helmut for my shifts, and I did that for the summer. And he really didn't talk much about it, about his stuff. And of course, I was young. I didn't know that much about it. Yeah. I wish only now what I know about history and, the whole World War situation and the extermination of the Jews and everything would have been highly interesting to talk to him.
Talk to him about. Was there anything during your time at the Don jail that had you fearful, or anything that happened that sort of really stood out for you?
Working at that place was it was really like working in a zoo. It was busy every single day, and you saw awful things every single day. Injuries, sex assaults, bad stories. It was every day. One thing that shocked me there, it's in the book as well, I was hanging around with a guy there. I won't get into his name. He was a really good guy in my mind. And he was funny, and he was a lot like me. We liked to have fun. We'd hung around together off duty and stuff. And I find out he's missing one day. He's not around. Where is he? Well, there's no cell phones, right? There's no texting going on. So, where is this guy? Hasn't been up to work. Well, I find out he's been arrested, and he was bringing drugs he was bringing cocaine in to the Don jail.
Wow. To
inmates. And here I'm hanging around with him. Yeah. He's under surveillance. Like, my life could have took a real bad turn just from being there.
Absolutely.
But I had nothing. I didn't know anything about it. And all of a sudden he vanished. I never saw him again in my life.
Wow.
And he got fired, of course, and he himself got charged and went to jail. I just couldn't imagine why or how. Like, I would never, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And anyway, so that happened.
Matthew, were there stories that stood out for you? In writing, we always sort of, there's always a character or there's a story that when we're retelling those tales, we want to tell those first. Were there stories that really intrigued you?
Oh, absolutely. There's a great many of them. Todd has one. There was a number of cigarette thefts going on in a small town in Essex County, and they're called out. They're smashed in front window of the pharmacy door, and not much other evidence going on. So they have the crime scene. People are doing their thing, and Todd and his partner are told, well, we'll maybe need you a little later. So he and his partner go off to have breakfast somewhere. And it's about 7 o'clock in the morning, I believe, in Wheatley.
Yeah.
Not that the location's that necessary. But anyway, and Todd's looking out the window while he's having his breakfast, and he sees a guy who's like really out of place, kind of a dirtbag type of individual. He's at a phone booth, and he's having a very animated conversation on the phone. And he says to his partner, he goes, what would a guy like this be doing in Wheatley at 7 o'clock in the morning on today? And they go, yeah, I wonder. And they go out, and the guy will not identify himself, so they have ground chance to detain him, bring him back to the scene, pull his shoe off of him, and do an ink transfer with it. And sure enough, his footprint is in the reassembled glass that one of the techs had assembled like a puzzle. And so this fella is taken back, turns out to be a confidential informant, and it becomes complicated. It's just neat. And these are all true stories. And as I'm writing them at any given time, and I would run into a wall, it was really satisfying to go, just call Todd and see what happens next.
Yeah.
So,
did you have to embellish anything, or did the stories hang on their own?
Oh, they absolutely hung on their own.
Yeah.
If anything, I almost struggled to make them sound real.
Yeah.
I would ask,
couldn't make it up.
Absolutely. Todd would, just from a storytelling point of view, some of them are just too good to be true. The jail brawl spilling down the stairs, and this hideous scene of a man's prosthetic leg laying off to the side. Yeah. And in the midst of the melee, it's used to subdue him. So I would ask Todd over and over, I said, it's not like I don't believe you, but I just want to make sure I'm not just hearing what I want to hear. Because I'm hearing a very dramatic story. And oftentimes it was exactly as good as I thought. Yeah.
And how much time did you spend together?
About 2 years, maybe, Matt?
Well, it was 7 or 8 months of interviewing Todd, and then I was writing it, but then meeting with them to get further details and things like that, and refining it. But we really took our time with it to make sure that we had it down right.
COVID hit us in the middle of the process,
right?
But me and Matt were okay with that because I was together, and we just plugged. Actually, it helped us get through COVID. We did a lot of the work in COVID. And I was lucky because back in the day, a young cop, we actually had newspapers, and there were some newspaper clippings I could hand to Matt, and he'd see some stuff and go, whoa.
So speaking of being a cop, what stands out from your time, because you became an OPP officer and you spent most of your career as an OPP?
Yes. Well, I worked at the Don Jail for those years and the Windsor Jail. I certainly knew about crime. I certainly knew about criminals. And I was working in a daycare center. And some of the OPP officers at the time were bringing their kids there. And next thing you know, they hear I was working at the jail. They go, well, you can work for the OPP. You'd have fun. You can go here and do this. And it just looked exciting. Yeah. And I never thought I could really do it, but
there's something incongruous. ECE, working in a daycare, the Don Jail, becoming an OPP is usually not the trajectory that you think.
But you know what? All those things helped me.
I bet
a great deal.
I bet it did.
So I did interview for the OPP, and back in my day, this would have been in 1989 where the process started, where I was going to get involved with the OPP. And by 1990, I was hired. But the government push in those days was French, and I had no French. But it was really important to have a degree. And they were kind of looking for older candidates too. And here I am, I'm 29 now, and I'm going to apply to the OPP. Usually the guys are in their 20s, 22, under 25 usually. So I'm 29 and a little older, have a degree. And then I started telling the interviewer about criminals. I go, well, you don't know this? Because I know about criminals. I spent, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no training in policing about interviewing and talking to criminals. There's too much. There's too much other stuff to worry about. That got me in the job. And then from there, it took about a year, and they sent me to Merlin. And I had to look on a map where that was. I didn't know where Merlin was.
Isn't there a well-known singer?
Michelle Wright.
Michelle Wright from Merlin.
So I end up going to Merlin, and I meet some very interesting officers, and there's my life in Merlin.
What did you not like about being OPP?
Oh, God. Well, it's a real, it is a very hard job. Emotionally, physically, you're working shifts, there's no holidays. Well, there's holidays, but the place never closes. You're exposed to terrible things on an ongoing basis. You can't control some of the things you're going to see and do. It's very unpredictable. There were some rewarding times as well, some fun times. I was fortunate in the OPP because I did a variety of things. I worked undercover. I worked intel. I worked in anti-terrorism. I got to work patrol. I got to fly in airplanes. I had a really, really good run with them. And I worked hard, And I have some good stories at the end of the day from it. So,
what would you say was, when you look back and you've got all these great memories of the good things, was there something that sort of stayed with you that you experienced that was more traumatic?
Well, to this day, I would say I still have some bad thoughts every once in a while, certain things that bother me a lot. Saw some horrific accidents. Mm-hmm. I had a woman die in my arms one day with a broken motorcycle helmet, and her husband's crawling out of a ditch with his leg cut off, telling me to save his wife who's already dead. And I'm there alone.
Good Lord.
I mean, the police have some training. We take first aid. We can put Band-Aids on and help your sprained ankle, but I'm not a field surgeon on the road. Mm. And, you see some awful, awful things. And that was really hard to get over, to deal with that. At the same time, every once in a while, you get a gift, a good gift. And you get some happy endings as well. You get to help some people. And I helped several people during some sexual assaults, some young victims that were really grateful for what I did for them.
Wow. There are so many great tales in the book.
Really is.
And so you guys have remained friends.
We have, yeah.
Well, so far.
We have indeed.
So what's next? What are you doing next? Because we've only got a couple of seconds.
Well, we're doing a presentation about Todd's year at the Windsor Jail, working there. Cool. And he has plenty of answers to people's questions, and people love local history in this area.
And where can you get the book?
At Juniper Books, at Storytellers Bookstore on Ottawa Street, the Walkerville Artists Collective, and at River Bookshop in Amherstburg.
That's awesome. Thank you both so much. We could have talked for an hour. Best of luck with the book.
Thank you for having us.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for this edition of Scribes and Songsters. It goes so quickly. There are so many other adventures in this book, so you'll just have to pick it up. It really is a great read. Thank you to my guests, Todd Ternovan and Matthew St. Amand. Thanks to our Scribes and Songsters team, producer Brian Sweet, technical producer and editor Gary Glass. Grateful thanks to Tony Toldo and the Toldo Foundation, and to Neil and Tina Queering for their ongoing support. We certainly appreciate it. And just a note, all 7 seasons of Scribes and Songsters are available on our YouTube channel. Check us out. Special thanks to you for watching. Hope to see you right back here next time on Scribes and Songsters. I'm Veronique Mandel. Bye for now.